Hey guys, we're going to move right into the next video lecture. The title of this is Policy Making Structure and Processes. But in reality, what are we going to be talking about? Leadership in committees. So let's go on and get started. The Constitution doesn't list that many officers of Congress. It mentions the Speaker of the House, it mentions the President of the Senate, which is actually the Vice President, and the President pro tempore of the Senate. And then it kind of gives the generic, and then each House can decide on other officers. And these officers are chosen at the very beginning of each congressional term. So we have an election coming up in 1 week. And come January, early January 3rd, I believe, the each house is reassembled, and it is then where they vote on their leaders. Now, what happens is before that day, each political party gets together and they have their own meeting. They have their own caucus. And they go on and decide who is going to be their leader and who's going to be their whip. And so when it comes time to vote on them in the House, it's already decided. And it's pretty much always a party line vote. The group that's in the majority in the House, their choice for Speaker of the House is going to be one of them. In the House, the hierarchy is as follows. At the very top is the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House is considered to be the second most important position in the U.S. government, right behind the President. The Speaker of the House wields a great amount of power. They recognize members for speaking. They organize members for the conference committees, if there is a conference committee. And they wield the floor. They have a lot of influence. They get to determine pretty much if a bill is going to come up for a vote or not. And so if the Speaker of the House really isn't on board with a bill, it's not going to happen. There are a couple of exceptions on how it can happen, but really not. And we know the Speaker of the House is also second in line to the presidency after the Vice President. Below the Speaker of the House, we have the majority and minority leaders. They are the leaders of each political party. The Speaker of the House is the leader of the entire House of Representatives, and they are going to be a member of the majority party. But below them are the majority leaders and minority leaders. They are, well, it's the party leaders. That's pretty simple to understand. They're in charge. Right now, the majority leader is a Democrat in the House, and the minority leader is a Republican. They are always the first ones recognized when it comes time to talk. Below the majority and minority leaders are the whips. Sometimes we call these the deputy floor leaders. What happens is they are the vote counters. They whip up the vote for their side. They are in charge of party discipline to make sure members vote the way they're supposed to vote. Below them is a conference chair, and the conference chair takes care of the political party matters, organizing the meetings, etc. Those really don't have a lot of influence with the actual House. It's more of it's a political leadership. In the Senate, it's very similar. We have at the very top is the Vice President, who is the President of the Senate. The President of the Senate, or the Vice President, is a non-voting member. The only time they vote is if it's to break a tie, and that's mentioned in the Constitution, that they are non-voting except to break a tie. The Vice President, as President of the Senate, is meant to rule on procedures and the rules for organizing the Senate. And for quite a while, the Vice President was similar in power to the Speaker of the House. But now the Vice President really never shows up to the floor of the Senate or to preside over the Senate. they only do that if there's a momentous occasion. They're about to uh, pass some important legislation, or if they know it's going to be a close vote and they're going to have to break the tie. Now, for a long time, the vice president actually sat in on, I don't want to say for a long time, early on, the vice president actually sat in on the daily runnings of the Senate. They would sit up in the chair and kind of run the Senate. But it got pretty boring. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who said the vice presidency is one of the most lonely jobs in the world, something like that. And it is, as the leader of the Senate or the president of the Senate. Because the vice president rarely shows up, there is a position called president pro tem. And the president pro tem takes the place of the vice president. Whenever the vice president's not there, the president pro tem, temporary president, is what that translates to. And typically that is the most senior member of the majority party. So right now, the Republicans are in the majority. Which Republican has been in the Senate the longest? And they're going to be the president pro tem. Right now, it's Chuck Grassley of Iowa. Now, even then, the president pro tem, Chuck Grassley, doesn't sit at the chair every day. He delegates his job to other people, so he doesn't have to sit up there the whole time. And so it's kind of interesting that you have the vice president who's not there. Then that job falls to the president pro tem, who's not there a lot of times. So it falls to someone else. Below the president pro tem, or below the vice president and president pro tem, is the majority and minority leaders. If you want to say who's the third most powerful person in the federal government, it's going to be the majority leader of the Senate. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, he is considered the chief legislator. He sets the calendar. He determines whether or not a bill is going to be voted on, what bills are going to reach the floor for debate, how many amendments there are going to be for each bill. They run the Senate. The majority leader runs the Senate. We have the minority leader. The minority leader is in charge of his political party. It's the counterpart to the majority leader, just like in the House. We have Senate whips, or deputy floor leaders. They do the same thing. They are vote counters. They enforce party discipline to make sure people are voting the right way. And then we have conference chairs, who are in charge of the political party issues in the Senate. These are two links. I have the Google Slides on Google Classroom. And if you click on this, and we have actually an assignment or two that deals with the leadership of the House and the Senate, this is going to take you to the official website, and you're going to take a look at who are the leaders in the House, who are the leaders in the Senate. And that's what these links are here for. Now let's look at committees. Excuse me. Committees are actually not mentioned in the Constitution. The Constitution in Article 1 doesn't say to divvy up the work, let's divide each house into committees, and each committee will be responsible for a specific area of expertise. We don't have that. It's not mentioned. But committees do a lot of work. They do all the groundwork and paperwork. So before a bill even gets to be voted on, it goes to a committee. We're going to take a look at the different committees in a homework assignment in the next day or two, and so we're going to learn all about it. But the House has about 20 committees, 20 permanent committees or standing committees. The Senate has about 16, and there's also all sorts of subcommittees, so committees below committees. And what happens is each representative and each senator belongs to a few committees where they are a member of. And each representative and senator tries to be on committees that are important to them or that have a lot of power. For instance, if a senator is a lawyer, they may want to be on the Judiciary Committee. or if they represent a rural area, they may want to be on the agriculture committee. But the committee system allows individuals, allows the members to use their expertise to really influence things that are important to them. Like I said, before a bill even gets to be voted on by the House or the Senate, it goes through the committee system. There's different types of committees. We have one type of committee called a standing committee. These are permanent, which means they are always there from one congressional term to the next. They are chaired by the most experienced senior member of the majority party, usually. Sometimes it could be a committee chairman could be placed there above someone with more seniority. That would be a political matter for each political party to decide. The minority leader in the committee is called the vice chair. Sometimes they're called the ranking member. In every committee, whether it's in the House or the Senate, the majority party always holds a majority of seats on the committee. That is always. They're in the majority overall, and they're going to be in the majority in each committee. In the Senate, different committees will often hold hearings for presidential appointments. For instance, we just got done dealing with Justice Amy Coney Barrett. The Senate Judiciary Committee held hearings on her confirmation. She's a judge, and so the Judiciary Committee had hearings. Some committees are more powerful, more influential than others, and we're going to get into some of those in a minute. And then in our homework assignments, we're going to look at these different committees. There are other committees. We have subcommittees, but we also have joint committees. And joint committees are committees that have members of both the House and the Senate. A lot of times they do research-based activities, such as taxation. There are select committees. Select committees are temporary, and they focus on one particular thing for a limited amount of time. It could be an investigation. After 9/11, there is a select committee on terrorism. We also have conference committees. Conference committees are committees that are made up of both members of the House and the Senate, and they are formed if the House and the Senate pass slightly different versions of the same bill. And so what happens is this conference committee gets together and they come up with a compromise bill, usually, which goes back to each House to be voted on one more time. Some other information about committees. The committees in the House and the Senate, this is where Congress does its oversight, where they make sure that the executive branch, the president, and the agencies are carrying out the policies that they implemented or the policies that were passed by Congress. They can hold hearings to make sure that the FBI is doing their job, or a farming program is working out the way they want it to work out. They ask questions, they have hearings to determine or to make sure that the work is getting done. And this is what we call oversight. And my puppy wants to make another showing. Come here, Allie. Come here. Oh, here she is again. Here's Allie. Oh, say hi, Allie. So, moving on. The Congress, there's also informal committees that we call caucuses. And a caucus is just a group that meets outside of the official time of Congress. It's an informal membership, and it's based around a particular view or belief. For instance, the Democrats have a caucus where all the Democrats get together, or we have the Hispanic caucus or the Freedom Caucus. It's just a membership to you could say a club or a group. You can belong to multiple caucuses. just like you can belong to multiple groups here at school. They have meetings and they can draft legislation, but they're not part of the official process. They're not mentioned in the Constitution. It's just clubs or groups of like-minded people, and we call those caucuses. Looking at some things that are unique to the House, the Speaker of the House controls who speaks. There are rules that limit how long the House is going to debate a particular bill. The Ways and Means Committee, it's special to the House. They determine anything related to taxes. So any tax policy is going to go through the Ways and Means. That is big. We have the Rules Committee in the House. And the Rules Committee it doesn't sound that big or sound that special, but it is. It is a gatekeeper. Every bill, before it gets voted on in the House, goes to the Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee determines how long you're going to debate a bill. They can also rewrite the bill in the Rules Committee. And this is important. The Rules Committee is like a clearinghouse that instead of just every single bill, once it gets out of committee, that it has to be voted on. Well, no. The Rules Committee is like a traffic cop. They're letting some of the bills through, and they're putting the brakes on others. And what it does is it centralizes the power, and it creates this hierarchy that everything must pass through the Rules Committee. And that just makes things more efficient. It flows, and it's necessary for the House because the House is so big. There's so many bills that are being introduced, and people want them to be voted on, or some people want to be voted on. And so the Rules Committee, like I said, is like the traffic cop. It just organizes the House, and it makes the rule-making process or law-making process in the House a lot more efficient. In the Senate, there are some unique rules that we have. In the House, debate is limited. In the Senate, it is not. Senators can speak for as long as they want. Once they are given the opportunity to speak, once they're recognized by the presiding officer, they have the floor and they can continue talking for as long as they want. Now, this can lead to something called a filibuster. A filibuster is basically talking a bill to death. Because a senator has the opportunity to speak for as long as they want, they can speak for as long as they want, which means a bill could be delayed and delayed and delayed as long as a senator is speaking about it, because the rules say once a senator starts talking, they have the right to talk for however long they want. Now, back in the day with the filibuster, the senator, would have to literally stand and talk and talk and talk. Nowadays, what senators do is they just say, hey, I'm going to filibuster this, instead of actually talking. With the filibuster, there is a way to stop the filibuster. And that's through what we call Rule 22 of the Senate, which is a cloture vote. Cloture, right down here. Right here, cloture. What that requires, this was passed in the early 1900s, and it requires a supermajority vote to stop a filibuster. And that requires 60 votes right now. So if someone is filibustering a bill, you could set up a vote, a cloture vote. And if 60 senators say, hey, let's stop the debate's going to stop at 30 hours from then. Now, starting about 7 years ago, the filibuster has been reduced. It started off as you can't filibuster a judicial nominee. And then in 2017, it said you can't filibuster a Supreme Court nominee. And now some people are threatening to eliminate this rule, this idea of a filibuster, in all cases. We just have to wait and see if that's going to happen. But the filibuster is unique to the Senate. And it's the reason why there's a filibuster is the Senate is the brake check on legislation, whereas the House can ram through a bill thanks to the Speaker of the House. The Senate, it slows things down. They said, "Hey, let's take time to think about it." And with the filibuster and the requirement of a cloture of 60 votes, it makes sure that everyone, or I don't want to say everyone, a majority of senators agree with a piece of legislation. So it requires bipartisanship. And that's something unique to the Senate. Something unique to the Senate is something called unanimous consent. And unanimous consent is just the approval or the voice approval of all the senators. And what happens is if someone wants to get something through, they say, I request unanimous consent of the Senate, which everyone would then say, okay. But if the unanimous consent is objected to, if one senator says, I object, I don't agree, that is a preview that there's going to be a filibuster. The Senate also has other duties. They approve treaties, they approve ambassadorships. Those are things related only to the Senate. The House really doesn't have a lot of foreign policy influence. It rests with the Senate, that slower, more deliberative body. That's all I have for today. Until next time, talk to you later.